For anyone who hasn't seen my lives before, I just talk about anxiety, try and pass on information that I've learned over the years through my decades of suffering with anxiety and now recovering from anxiety. So I'm here to just share what I've learned along the way, hopefully pass on some helpful information to people and help you get on the path of recovery too, because it's an awful thing to suffer with, is anxiety. So that's why I'm here. And there's a lot of misinformation about anxiety as well. There's a lot of first response care that's given, CBT mainly, which is inadequate for dealing with most anxiety disorders, in my opinion. Not that I have anything against CBT therapists or CBT therapy as a whole. I think it's excellent for general mental health and mental well-being, but doesn't focus enough on the behavioural element for anxiety. Or certainly that was my experience with it. It was all about focusing on I can't even remember, to be honest. Some of the stuff it just didn't help me. Worry diaries and that sort of thing. Talking about past traumas, that doesn't help either. But anyway, health anxiety is the one that most people are suffering with. That's the thing that the people struggle with the most. It's the physical symptoms of anxiety. The physical symptoms of anxiety, and how can anxiety cause such horrendous physical symptoms. I think you answered my post in Facebook group about the cold and flu caffeine tablets. Did I? I can't remember, Clara. Maybe. I don't remember. I don't remember. I do. I'm on quite a few Facebook groups for anxiety support because I like to be. I don't use them myself for reassurance, but when people ask for reassurance, I like to try and give them the right information instead of the "you'll be okay, hun, just breathe" type response. You know, I try and give people the right information. So hard to have the mask on of happiness all day, every day. Yeah, it is, but you don't need to. I mean, you don't have to wear that mask. You're allowed to be tired and I mean, look, in life, there's two types of people. Well, there's probably three types of people, but there's drains and there's radiators, and we all want to aspire to be a radiator that it gives out warmth and attracts people. We don't want to be drains. Now, anxiety and depression and all the other mental health conditions can make us become drains because we're so unhappy and miserable and suffering. We're suffering, right? Let's face it, we're suffering. But when we get into self-pity, that's when we become drains. And when we get into self-pity, I've been there, right, for years. I wasn't there just for a few days or weeks. I was there for years, and I was a drain on everyone around me. So it is hard. It is hard to balance. But you don't have to be happy all the time. Do you use medication? Yes, I do. I take mirtazapine and pregabalin. Mirtazapine is an antidepressant. It's an SNRI antidepressant. So it works slightly differently to SSRIs. Mirtazapine, so every antidepressant has what's called a therapeutic dose, which is when it starts to change serotonin levels in the brain. Mirtazapine has a very strange quality, which is at lower doses, it's sedative. But so the dose I take is a lower dose, 15 milligrams, but is not a therapeutic dose, which is 30 milligrams. So I take it for the weird side effects that it has, which it helps me sleep, and it takes a little bit of the edge off anxiety, I think, and it brings that drowsiness because it acts on the histamine part of the brain, and you'll have all heard of drowsy antihistamines like Benadryl and the such like. There's drowsy antihistamines and there's non-drowsy. Drowsy antihistamines are also very good for anxiety, promethazine hydrochloride being one, and hydroxyzine is another one. They're both excellent for anxiety because they work on the histamine part of the brain. They are licensed for prescription for anxiety. but many doctors don't prescribe them. And then but I don't take any antihistamines. I take mirtazapine and pregabalin. I take 150 milligrams of pregabalin 3 times a day, so 450 milligrams a day. The best I've ever got from anxiety medication, improvement-wise, is about 5% at absolute best. I think it helps. I think medication has a part to play in recovery. I did take propranolol up until about 9 weeks ago. I took propranolol 40 milligrams 3 times a day, and that was excellent for many symptoms, not just slowing the heart down, but many symptoms. It helped me a lot. The reason I stopped taking it is I improved my diet and exercise so much that my heart rate lowered, and the propranolol was having too much of an effect, so the doctors told me to stop it. So I didn't just stop it, the doctors told me to. So yeah, that's the medication that I take. The best I've ever got is about a 5% improvement on anxiety medication. I also take diazepam, but I don't mention it much because I've been prescribed diazepam for years. So my body is physically dependent on diazepam. It is an addictive medication. I've only ever taken it as prescribed. I haven't, it's prescribed on a PRN, but because I've been taking it for so long, for so many years, I have to take a low dose every day, just to stop withdrawal. But that's all it does. It just stops withdrawal. So I take a very, very low dose of it. I'll stop it eventually once my anxiety is at a level and I feel like I'm in a good place. Medication will be the last thing that I stop, because you want to keep your body in balance when you're trying to recover. When you're going through the recovery process, you don't want to be introducing loads of things or taking things away. You want to keep everything as is as much as possible, because your body's already going fucking mental with anxiety. So you need to drink fluids, eat regularly to keep your blood sugar levels and your hydration up. Try. I know sleep's not easy, but try sleep, and find a balance between doing and not doing. So you've got this kind of, you want to try and keep a balance of everything. Limit caffeine. Don't drink shit tons of caffeine or eat loads of sugary things, because that just causes spikes in things. So keep everything at a level. Right, let's read some more comments. You don't want people thinking you're grumpy if you're sad a lot. Well, I mean, we can't control what other people think of us. All we can do is try and be the best we can be, which I think boils down to 3 things: being honest, kind, and loving. If we can be those 3 things, that's all we can do, really. How do you get the strength to do the school runs? Thank God my sister does it for me. I'm trapped. I didn't just go from being housebound to being able to do the school run. If you scroll back through my TikToks, if you can be bothered, because there's lots of them, but you will see that there was a time where all I could do was walk and drive around the block. And I had to practice just driving to and from school. Now, I don't know if you drive or walk, but exposure therapy needs to be gradual, but it also needs to be difficult enough to cause anxiety and panic. Because if it doesn't cause anxiety and panic, you're not exposing yourself to the thing you need to expose yourself to. Exposure therapy is not about exposing yourself to the thing that you think you're afraid of, like being outside, going into supermarkets, doing the school run, right? They're all things that anxiety tells us is dangerous, but that's not really what we're afraid of. What we're afraid of is the fear we feel when we go to those places and do those things. So exposure therapy has to go far enough to trigger fear and panic, but not so far that you get completely traumatized by it, which is why it needs to be a gradual process. So, Jack, it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get from where I was to being able to do the school run. I'm also blessed with the fact that my son's mum and I separated a long time ago, but she works at the school and she works in the after school club. So my son can go to after school club. So for whatever reason I can't get there at 3:15, then he can always go to after school club. Now, that's another thing that's worth mentioning is, so I practiced doing the actual drive to and from for a fair while before I felt, right, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to do it. Now, when I said I was ready to do it, the mornings were actually easier for me. It was the pickup that was the hardest. So to begin with, I just always said I'll pick him up from after school club, because that way I had a massive time window and I could take as long as I needed to get there. So it's all about a gradual process, and strength isn't built just like that. You don't hear something or suddenly get this epiphany and all of a sudden you're strong and you've got all this courage. It takes building. So when I started my recovery, I thought there was no way I would ever be able to recover because I didn't have the courage. And I honestly thought that. And when I read Dr. Weekes' book, I was like, this isn't going to work for me because I don't have enough courage. And then on one of the pages, I might go get the book actually because it'd be worth quoting a few bits, but on the first page it says, it doesn't matter how much of a coward you think yourself to be, you can recover. And when I read that, I was like, okay, she's got me on this book, so I'll carry on reading. And courage is built over time. But it has to be built from consistent and persistent and repetitive exposure therapy. Once a week won't cut it. It needs to be every single day or most days of the week. And if one day you're having a bad day, just make the goal smaller instead of doing nothing. That's the key. It's the physical symptoms every single day. I'm convinced I have a terminal illness. Yeah. See, what you have, the problem is, the reason we're convinced we have a terminal illness is because over time, we've experienced a symptom, we've gone to the doctors or we've Googled or we've asked for reassurance, and this behaviour, this safety behaviour, right, the fears have risen, and we've done that safety behaviour. Or what if it's cancer? I better Google it. I better ask for reassurance, right? So the first time that happens, you go into that safety behaviour. Now the brain learns very quickly that safety behaviour keeps you safe. So the next time you get a symptom, you do the same thing again. The problem is, the more you do that, the more the fear response. So yes, it learns that those behaviours are safe, but it also learns that symptoms are dangerous. So it builds fear up. So every symptom becomes a terminal illness. If you've been checked by your doctor, your bloods are okay, then and you are behaving like somebody with health anxiety, you're Googling, you're asking for reassurance, you're checking your pulse, you're prodding and poking your body, all the rest of it, you're going to the doctors all the time. Maybe you're not going to the doctors all the time. You don't have to be. It doesn't have to be all of those things. But if you're doing that, then you have health anxiety. And the only way to get past it is you have to stop all those behaviours. You don't have to believe that you don't have a terminal illness. So you don't have to believe that you're fit and healthy. You just have to act as if you believe you are fit and healthy. You can still be afraid, but you just don't do the action. And it takes time for the brain to, through neuroplasticity, for the brain to learn that these symptoms are not always dangerous. What do you do if you've lost everything and everyone? Alan, send me a message, my friend. We'll have a chat. Right, let's scroll through some more comments. Bear with me. I've been put on propranolol, but I keep getting dizzy. Yeah, I mean, propranolol can make you a little bit dizzy. It did me if I stood up too quickly sometimes, or for some reason I was just having a low anxiety day, then the propranolol would make me a little bit dizzy. But that's all it is. It's a little bit of dizziness. You've got to weigh up with medication if the side effects, the benefits, outweigh the side effects. That's what I had to do. And for me, the occasional uncomfortable slow heart rate that I would get occasionally with propranolol, not dangerously slow, uncomfortably slow for me. I didn't like it, right? But that was better for me than the ectopics and the racing heart and the pounding heart, right? So the benefits outweighed it. I got cold feet. I didn't really care about that. I got a little bit dizzy if I stood up too quick. What's your thoughts on sertraline? I can only share my personal experience, which is I maxed it out. I was on it for years and it did absolutely nothing, and the withdrawal was absolutely terrible. The thing is with serotonin, right? Serotonin has nothing to do with the fear response. It just doesn't have a part to play at all. However, people with anxiety can obviously develop low mood, depression, and obviously lose motivation to do things. And the less we do, the more anxious we become. So the antidepressants can be helpful to bring a little bit of emotional balance, right size problems, give us a little bit of motivation, lift our mood a little bit. Theoretically, that never seemed to work for me on all the antidepressants that I've been on over the years. And serotonin doesn't have anything to do with the fear response. But that said, because of what it does in serotonin, it can in theory dampen down the sensitivity of the parts of the brain that are causing all the physical symptoms, but it didn't for me. And it can't. The thing is, there isn't a medication that exists that can eradicate fear, because fear is an autonomic system that is built into every animal, not just humans, to keep you alive. This is why we shouldn't be afraid of fear, because fear has one job, and that's to keep you alive. That's it. That's its entire job. Do you think it was a panic attack because I always wanted to get out? I think I've missed a comment, Rosie. Hi, Hannah. There's a few comments about propranolol. How do you ease the constant worry and overthinking, the constant racing heart? Okay. It depends what you're worrying about. I used to be a constant worrier and a constant overthinker about everything, right? But it depends if that's what you mean. Do you mean about life as a whole, or do you mean in the context of anxiety? If you mean as life as a whole, you need to take life one day at a time. You have a to-do list for today, right? And when your mind starts wandering onto other things, you go back to your list. What have I got to do today? If it's happening in the future, so I ask myself two questions. Is it happening today? No. If it's not happening today, is there anything I can do to help it today? If I answer no to those two questions, then I don't give it any time and have to refocus. The constant racing heart, right? So anxiety fundamentally is fueled by behaviour. So if you're checking your pulse constantly, you've got your smartwatch on that measures your heart rate, all those types of things, you've got to stop all those behaviours. You have to take your attention away from the heart and move it on to something else. Hey, Mr. Bean, I'm getting repeated comments over and over again. I'm not sure why that is. Was your heart rate too low? Define too low. I didn't die, so no. When I took propranolol, sometimes my heart rate would drop to about 49, and it was a little bit uncomfortable. Like, I just didn't like the fact that it felt like it was beating so slow. But when I what happened was, as I changed my diet and improved my exercise, I noticed that I was feeling unusually dizzy for me. And I felt like I was going to faint quite a lot. So I checked my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was like 97/52 or something, which I know is low. And the blood pressure machine said that my pulse was 42 or 43. So I just submitted a request to the doctors and said, here's my readings, what should I do? And he said, stop propranolol immediately. So, But that wasn't propranolol alone. It was a combination of improvements in my behaviour, which meant that I was no longer focusing on my heart, therefore I wasn't getting as much adrenaline into the bloodstream, and improvements in diet and exercise, lowering my heart rate. So don't hate on propranolol, because propranolol is an excellent medication for anxiety, in my opinion. Second day of taking sertraline, it's generally been better a couple of days. Jordan, that's almost certainly the placebo effect, my friend, in 2 days, but that's fine. because the placebo effect is perfectly valid within medical science. So it doesn't matter if you're feeling better, great. I took lorazepam and it made me so tired. I was too tired to be anxious. Yeah, I mean, benzodiazepines cause more problems than they solve, to be honest. Doctors won't give me diazepam. Good, John, I'm glad. Well, I'm not glad. But when you've been on them for years like I have, and you can't come off them because of the withdrawal, and the withdrawal is life-threatening withdrawal, it's not just uncomfortable withdrawal. Combine that with your fear of death already, the terror, the anxiety that it causes, that, oh my God, what if the doctor's just suddenly prescribing me, stop prescribing me diazepam, what if the pharmacy run out of it? You know, constantly having this, you have to have it, because if you don't, you start having withdrawal, and then it causes, it's brilliant to begin with. But the other problem with diazepam is that you run to it as a solution every time you become anxious. So, and that behaviour tells the brain that there was something to be dangerous about. So I needed it to stop me calling ambulances. That's why they prescribed it to me. Because, you know, I'd called something like 32 ambulances in 2 months. So that's why they prescribed it. I mean, they had to do something. And it was the only thing that could stop me calling ambulances. But even that wasn't enough in the end. Losing weight has helped me, to be fair, actually. I've lost nearly 2.5 stone in 3 months, and it has helped a lot, I have to say. I'm getting repeated comments over and over again. I don't understand why. This is so weird. It's like it's just scrolling through the same comments. Sorry, just bear with me. Chest pain and anxiety is really common, yeah. I mean, the tension of the muscles is the most common cause for it, but it can also come from your stomach as well. But I've done enough 999 triages thinking that I'm having a heart attack to know now what the red flag symptoms are. And so I know to check the back of my neck and, you know, am I sweating? Have I gone grey? If you've just got chest pain, the thing is, I have it on good authority from somebody who's had a heart attack that when you have one, you fucking know about it. He's also had a panic attack as well, and he said you do know the difference. So, this comment, I don't know if people are typing the comments in over and over again or it's repeating, I'm not sure. I'm a drinker and I've done a couple of days off and can't sleep unless I drink. Chris, I'm an alcoholic. I've not drank for 3.5 years. If you think you've got a problem and you want help with it, drop me a message, my friend. I have lived as long as my arm most days. What I need to do comes to it, and I stay in. Maybe just make the list smaller, Emma. Maybe make the list smaller. Make the goals smaller. Do you feel like since your first panic attack or DPDI, your brain or you as a person has been altered? I've reached the point in my life now where, although my adult life has been pretty much destroyed by anxiety and alcoholism, to be fair, I have to include that. But anxiety, by the way, I had anxiety before I was drinking alcohol, so it's not alcohol that caused it. I started having panic attacks when I was 7 years old, and I certainly wasn't drinking then. What was I saying? I don't think it's altered me as a person. No, I think in a way it's made me part of who I am. So I guess it has altered me, but in a good way, not in a bad way. And I wouldn't actually change it, because if me going through the shitstorm that I've gone through helps however many people through this platform, then to me it was worth it. That's what I'd say. I walk but can't even walk on. Oh, right, Jack, sorry, this is back to your school run thing, isn't it? God bless you, mate. You've just got to keep practicing, Jack. You've got to keep going over and over and over again. Walk to the point that you can get to where you start to panic, and then just walk 10 more steps and then turn around and go home. Don't run home, walk home slowly, and just keep expanding. If you think, right, even if you're completely housebound, if today you start by walking 10 steps from your house, right? 10 steps. In a year, if you increase by 10 steps a day, you'll be able to walk 3,650 steps away from your house if you do it every single day and increase it by 10 steps every day. Right? So you have to think about this as the long game. And don't think that, oh, well, if I can't go to the shop and I can't go to the cinema, I can't go to the restaurant, I can't go into town, then it's pointless. It's not pointless. I felt like it was pointless in the beginning. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. But I just kept doing it over and over and over and over and over again until eventually what happens, I was walking around the block over and over and over again, and you look down the roads that you think you can't walk down, and eventually you go, fuck this, why can't I walk down this road? And you start walking down it. That's what happened to me. Yeah, gradually turn short journeys into long ones, yeah, absolutely. There's so many comments on here, I don't even know if people are still on here. Suffering at the moment, more bad days than good, but still trying to do the things the best I can. Try and measure your days on what you do, not how you feel. Like today, if I was to measure my day today on how bad my anxiety symptoms are, then I'd be telling you it was a shit day, right? But today, I've taken my dog to the dog groomers, which is a couple of miles down the road. I then had to come home and then go back and pick him up an hour and a half later. So I've done two exposures there. Then later this afternoon, I took him on a 3-kilometre walk in the woods. And then this evening, I've been out to an AA meeting about 5 miles away. And I've been out of the house for 2 hours this evening. So, my anxiety symptoms have been on me, but look what I've achieved. So I try and measure it on what I've achieved, not how I feel. Scrolling through comments. I'm not purposely skipping anybody. If I miss you, I'm sorry. Recovering from a chest infection, but this whole time my brain has just spiraled. Do you know I've never had a chest infection? I never. Neurologist said my nervous system is dysregulated and that's why my physical symptoms are so bad. Sir, your neurologist is absolutely right. Anxiety is fundamentally a neurological problem. It's been caused by a dysregulated functioning of the nervous system. The nervous system is functioning completely wrong. Well, yeah, completely wrong. It's firing signals erratically at the wrong time, and it's doing this because chronic anxiety over the years has caused the nervous system to become so dysregulated. So anxiety is fundamentally a neurological problem. If anything, it sits in a branch of neuropsychiatry. Thank you, Ems. That's very sweet of you. It sits in the branch of neuropsychiatry, not mental health, because it's fundamentally a neurological problem. Outwardly, to everybody, it looks like a mental health condition because of the repetitive behaviours, the avoidance and the safety seeking, and the way it just breaks us down. But it's not fundamentally. We are afraid of fear. And because we're afraid of fear, we're stuck in a cycle and the symptoms just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow because the nervous system becomes more and more and more sensitised. Sir, please read Dr. Claire Weeks' Self-Help for Your Nerves. It was written in 1962. Can you get tablets for panic attacks? Well, you can, but taking tablets reactively for panic attacks reinforces the panic attack. It is better to face the fear. I'm not anti-medication, by the way, and if you've been prescribed medication, take it as prescribed, but medication for anxiety is better to be taken proactively, preventatively, not reactively when panic happens, because the behaviour, the act of running to a tablet tells the brain that this was dangerous and we had to take something to get better. That's the reason. My heart sometimes jumps out of rhythm weirdly and I can feel it being weird. Am I dying soon? Bless you. It's such a... So the number of times I've said that and felt that is probably in the thousands. And the ectopics are horrendous, especially when you get a bunch in a row. if you've been checked by your doctor and you've been told that what you're suffering from is anxiety, then you have to go with that. All my thoughts on my past panic attacks is this: the hippocampus showing me these events to avoid. Yes, it is. So there are some core parts of the brain. So first of all, there's the insula. Now the insula listens to the body, okay? And the insula gets data from the amygdala, which is the fear threat response, and the hippocampus, right? And all those three things combine to decide what to do. There's then a part of the brain called the locus coeruleus, which sprays the brain with norepinephrine, which is the chemical equivalent of adrenaline. Sprays the brain, activates all those parts of the brain and makes them go mental, right? Triggers a panic attack. And over time, all those systems become so sensitive, just a breeze across the face is enough to send someone into a panic attack over time. But you're right, everybody with panic disorder has PTSD, essentially. And the flashbacks of the previous panic attacks are so profound that it causes another panic attack. So you know, yes, your hippocampus is involved in this, but it doesn't mean you can't overcome it. You have to replace the memories, essentially. Withdrawal from sertraline was mainly brain zaps that were absolutely horrendous, and I just felt dreadful for a long time. I don't take propranolol anymore, no. What can you do if you can't work? I've been out of work for 20 years, but I get panic attacks. Molly, bless you. I'm very fortunate that I can work from home. Molly, if I couldn't work from home, I'd be in the same position myself. My blood pressure is always high. I have to try and calm myself down when going to the doctors. My blood pressure was always high whenever I went to the doctors because I was out of the house, to be honest. That was why. And it was high most of the time when I took it in the house. But, you know, you've got to... these anxiety person high and then there's medically high. Anxiety person high is anything above 120/80. But really, that's not high and doctors aren't concerned at all. I can't get out of bed without my propranolol. I wake up and it's doing 150 beats per minute. Bless you, Jade. Keep taking the propranolol. I'm exhausted all the time. It's ridiculous to try meds, but taking them made me more anxious. Fatigue is a problem with anxiety as well, especially with a dysregulated nervous system. The spoons theory is very good for managing fatigue. What started your disorder, Tom? A panic attack, I'm guessing. Well, what's your story? Nothing, no event started my panic and anxiety. But as a child, I remember being afraid, I'm talking sort of 6-7 years old, afraid that everybody in the world would disappear, or at least all the adults in my life would disappear. And this became a really profound fear. And I remember getting lost on a school trip and separated from parents, and that caused me an enormous amount of panic. I had a panic attack once when my mum went to the shops, because back in the day when, you know, I was playing out on the street, my mum went to the supermarket, and my mum said to my neighbour, "Oh, can you watch the kids while I nip to the shop?" And while she was at the shop, I had a panic attack, a full-blown meltdown panic attack, and I ran into the neighbour's house, you know, shaking, manically, saying, I need my mum, where's my mum? And this overwhelming fear that she wouldn't come back. Of course, she did come back. So my anxiety and panic was well set in by the age of 7. Fast forward to 9 years old, and my mum and dad were separated. I went to stay with my dad. My mum went on a night out, and she walked out behind a bus and got hit by a car and died. So, and my 9-year-old brain, I think, went, see, I told you, something bad was going to happen. So, and whenever I've seen therapists, they've always said, "Oh, it's your mum dying that's caused it all." And I'm like, no, it isn't, because it started before then. So, you know, we can focus on that all you like, but, you know, it started before then. And to be honest with you, the cause doesn't matter. But then from there, I still had this kind of existential fear that the world was going to, or everyone in the world was going to disappear. And then in my pre-teens, I started to develop health anxiety. Back there was no Google back then, so I was reading medical encyclopedias and all sorts of stuff. Terrified of brain tumour, cancer, skin cancer, any cancer that I'd heard of, basically. Bone cancer, because my granddad died of bone cancer. So classic health anxiety all throughout my teens. And it got worse. And then I developed OCD when I started driving, and I got this fear that what if I've caused an accident and I didn't realise it. So I'd go back over and over and over, going round in circles, checking the roads over and over and over again. And eventually I couldn't drive. I was housebound because of this OCD. And the health anxiety took a back seat while that took over. And I went to see a psychologist, and he said something to me, and it managed to just snap me out of the OCD. He basically said, so what? So what if you've caused an accident? And we went down, all the scenarios, and somehow it snapped me out of it. But I always was afraid of lifts and going on trains, anything with automatic doors that I couldn't open. I'm not claustrophobic, but I have to be able to get out. So I was afraid of anything like that. And then the panic attacks, I had panic attacks as a teenager, and they just, from the age of 18, they just went fucking mental, to be honest. And from there, it's just been a downhill slope, basically. The only way I survived my 20s was because of alcohol. That's the only way I got through my 20s. But from there, it just the health anxiety continued. I eventually lost all the fear of illnesses like cancer and stuff like that. The only real illnesses that remained were things like MS, MND, brain tumours, and instant death. It changed to just that. And it stayed like that for fucking years, and it just developed into panic disorder, agoraphobia, monophobia, emetophobia. And from 2016, I've been practically housebound until this last 18 months, where I've been dragging myself out of it. For 2 years, I was completely housebound. That's not strictly true. I did leave the house some of the time, but got no more than about 20 metres away. So yeah, diazepam is helpful, provided that you don't take it all the time. Someone's just said about diazepam being helpful. I'm so behind with comments, and I'm conscious that people might not be on the live, so I'm going to just scroll through a load of them. So I'm going to scroll through a load to try and get to people that are probably still on the live. So So someone said here, Shannon said, I feel like the fear of getting an illness or disease causes physical symptoms of what I'm feeling. Yeah, absolutely. There is a thing called white coat syndrome, which is, doctors get it, where they know about physical illnesses, and then it can manifest in physical illnesses. And the reason is the nervous system's incredibly powerful. If you become... So I mentioned bone cancer earlier, right? I developed this fear of bone cancer, right? And I knew that my granddad's bone cancer started with pain in his knees. So all my attention went to my knees. And eventually I could feel every crack, every pop, every pull, every pain, every ache in my knee. Why? Because I was focusing my attention on it. If everybody sits here now and puts all their attention on their big toe on the left foot, and you keep doing it, eventually you'll start feeling some really strange sensations. And that's how powerful the nervous system is. So that's why it happens, because the attention gets focused. So essentially the automatic detection systems of the brain, so the amygdala, the insula, and so on, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerves start to detect through our behaviour. And that's why it all happens. Just scrolling through some more comments. Dr. Google is the worst. Yeah, Dr. Google is the worst. But people were going to Dr. Claire Weeks in 1962 with all the same fear of the same illnesses as we were. So, I don't know if Dr. Google's made it worse because people still had the fear before Dr. Google existed. So, but it is. I mean, the thing with Google, what happened for me was I stopped Googling in 2020, right? And I remember it. So, for those who don't know, I'm diagnosed with something called functional neurological disorder, which is not like MS or anything like that, although the symptoms can mimic MS, to be fair. And the reason I was diagnosed with it, I was going numb all down the right side of my body, and it felt like my face was drooping, I'd be slurring my words. And I kept going to the doctors for years. It took 9 years, right, of going to the doctors about this. They kept saying it's anxiety, right? And it is anxiety, to be fair, right? Chronic anxiety progresses into a completely functional neurological disorder, right? Which I'll come on to in a minute. But eventually I got referred to a neurologist, and this neurologist examined me, said, there's nothing wrong with your nervous system, your brain scan's fine. You've got something called functional neurological disorder. I said, what's that? And he said, it's where the functioning of your nervous system has changed, and that is what's causing all of your symptoms. There's nothing physically wrong with you. The symptoms are very real, and you are experiencing them. And he said it's very common in people that have suffered trauma, either mental or physical. So, where they've severed a limb or whatever, physical trauma as well as mental trauma. Chronic anxiety, but there can also be no cause at all. But people with chronic anxiety are very susceptible to it. And this is where I went, and he gave me a website, and I went to this website and list of all these symptoms, and I was like blown away by the fact that the nervous system could do this. So I changed my Google searches from, hey Google, insert terrifying symptom here, will this kill me? ... I changed my Google search from how does the brain work? How does the nervous system work? How does the body work? I think it's important to know how the body works. Knowledge is power. But I changed my Google searches from illnesses to, I guess, the neurology and physiology of the human being. And that's how I learn over time everything that I've learned about the nervous system, and what eventually led me to Dr. Claire Weeks and my own recovery. Dr. Claire Weeks was the missing link. If I'd read Dr. Claire Weeks, the annoying thing is I learned all this stuff about the nervous system, then read a book that was written 60 years ago that explained everything that I just learned. And I've seen 7, I think, probably more, but 7 CBT therapists, a variation of NHS and private. None of them have mentioned Dr. Claire Weeks to me. I've seen psychologists, psychiatrists, many psychiatrists actually. I've been in a mental hospital for a week. I've really been through it, right, with anxiety. I've been away in E, God knows how many times. I've called upwards of, I don't even know how many ambulances have been to my house. And no one has ever mentioned to me Dr. Claire Weeks. And her book, Self-Help for Your Nerves, explains exactly what's wrong with me. Right, what else have we got? Had OCD all my life. I mean, the thing is, everybody with anxiety has OCD. But people with OCD will say, no, they don't. But we do, because even agoraphobia is OCD. We're obsessed about being near a person or place of safety, right? Our house or a person. And the compulsion is, well, I just won't leave the house then. Therefore, it's a disorder. Health anxiety is OCD, because your obsession is your health and the compulsion is to constantly check. But people think like OCD of like, flicking light switches on and off, or like I described earlier, going round in circles, rechecking roads. But yeah. Hey Jay. Hey Matt, nice to see you. Why do I feel anxious about my relationship? Laura, probably because, I mean, it maybe falls a little bit outside the scope of this life, but relationship anxiety is really common in people with anxiety. My relationship anxieties have come from a place of low self-esteem and low self-worth about myself, and anxiety very much fuels that. Because, who'd want to be with me when I'm crippled with anxiety and agoraphobia and panic attacks and health anxiety and all the other anxieties, all the other flavours of anxieties. And I'm an alcoholic, so who the hell would want to be with me? So you can then become, afraid of being left and not being good enough and fear of rejection and all the rest of it. All you can do, though, Laura, you can't make somebody love you and stay with you. All you can do is be honest. Always be honest. Because every time you're dishonest, no matter no matter how small a lie is, it's still a lie. And every time we lie, unless you're a complete bellend, it erodes your self-esteem. Right? To be honest with you, even if you're a complete bellend, it erodes your self-esteem. So, like in my case, I used to lie all the time, partly because of my anxiety, partly because of my alcoholism. And it was a defense mechanism. I've been lying from it as a child to get people to like me and accept me because we're pack animals, right? We need to be accepted. But every time I lied, it just shaves away my self-esteem. But then your ego comes in to defend this low self-esteem. So you'll always justify it in some way. Your ego will justify it. But you know deep inside you that you're lying, right? So be honest. Always be honest, right? And if that honesty is something that somebody else doesn't like, that's their problem. Provided you're not, being nasty and using honesty as like a, you've got to be common sense, but be honest, be kind, and be loving, right? You can only be those three things. And if people then don't like you and that's not good enough for somebody in a relationship, that's their problem, not yours. It's not a fault with you. How did you get over health anxiety? If you mean how did I get over of the classic health anxiety fear of cancers and everything, I essentially just stopped giving it attention. I essentially I stopped giving it attention. I stopped Googling, stopped prodding and poking my body, and I stopped going to the doctors and getting checked all the time. And I stopped asking for reassurance. Now, what happened for me was I then got sudden death health anxiety, right? Heart attack, stroke, brain tumour, brain aneurysm, sudden death, health anxiety. And that's what I'm still recovering from. But I can't remember the last time I was truly thought, shit, I'm about to die. And I used to feel like that all day, 24/7. I'm about to die, all day. I would have between 10 and 15 panic attacks every day for 15 years. 10 years, 15 years. It was 15 years I worked out the other day. Yeah, nearly 15 years. 2010 is when it started at that level, kind of 10 to 15 panic attacks a day. And that's, to be fair, that's probably another reason why I got rid of the classic health anxiety, was because the sudden death health anxiety took over. But the key is, right, the fundamental problem with health anxiety, the classic health anxiety, is symptom occurs and immediately we go, shit, what's that? And here's the secret. Nobody knows. You could go to the doctor. You could have a doctor right next to you when the symptom arises and go, hey, doctor, I've just got this. What is it? And the first thing they'd say is, how long have you had it? Or one of the first things they'd say is, how long have you had it? A minute. Oh, I ain't got a clue then. And, there's no doctor on this planet would know immediately what a symptom is. Immediately. So even if you had access to a doctor there and then, they wouldn't know, unless it was like a medical emergency and there'd be a presentation of multiple symptoms, but just a pain or an ache or feeling sick or whatever, no one's going to know. And that's the secret to overcoming health anxiety. And I guess that's kind of what I realised, was that if you think about what everybody else without health anxiety does, when they get a symptom, they go, oh, that's a bit weird. I've had that for a couple of days. I'll see how it is next week. If I've still got it next week, I'll ring the doctors. And then they carry on with their life. And it either gets worse and progresses, stays the same, or it goes away. If it stays the same or progressed, they go to the doctors after a week or so. But most of the time it goes away. And that's the key to health anxiety, is you cannot diagnose a symptom immediately as it happens. So why the fuck do we try? because not even a medical professional could do it, because one of the key components of a diagnosis is how long have you had it? Has it stayed the same or got any worse? So time alone has to be a factor in a diagnosis, right? And that's how everybody else that's how they don't progress into health anxiety, is that they go, oh, and they let time pass. So when a symptom first arises, nobody knows whether it's something serious or not. So what you have to do is let time pass to see if the symptom goes away or gets better. But in that time, you can't then spend all day on Google, all day prodding and poking the area, because all you're doing is drawing attention to it. So then anxiety takes over, the nervous system takes over. It will essentially create and magnify symptoms in that area, and make everything worse. I don't know if that's helped. Yeah, lower back pain, muscles, leg cramps. I mean, these are all common anxiety things. Now spiraling in front of my computer instead of doing work that I needed to get done 2 days ago. Yeah, it's not just ruminating, stressing mentally, it's constant breathlessness and heart palpitations. Yeah. I mean, my anxiety, I've always said, doctor, right, it's nothing to do with me. I get the physical symptoms first, then I'm scared. I'm not scared and then I get the physical symptoms, so what the fuck's that all about? But the problem is that over time the brain learns to be afraid of fear. Fear activates and it's fear of fear. So I understand. But you have to understand that the breathlessness and the heart palpitations, you don't have to believe they are not dangerous. You just have to act as if you believe they are not dangerous. It's all about behaviour. It's all about how you present your behaviour to the body, to the brain. That's what the body listens to. That's what the brain listens to. It doesn't listen to you saying to yourself, don't worry, Tom, it's okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. Just breathe. It's okay. The brain doesn't listen to that. The brain listens to behaviour. So if I start pacing up and down, right, Googling, ringing people, asking for reassurance, going to the doctors, calling ambulances, because what's happening is the brain's screaming at you, hey person, is this dangerous? Is this breathlessness dangerous? Are these heart palpitations dangerous? Then it listens for an answer. And the only answer it can hear is your behaviour, not what you think. It's what you do. If you check your pulse, do all those things that I've just said, then you are saying, yes, it is dangerous. And it says, okay, person, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to magnify, I'm going to intensify any sensation in that area. And I'm going to listen more intently and I'm going to activate adrenaline the moment I detect it. And all that happens before your conscious mind has even noticed it. Those automatic systems have already taken place. It's incredible what the nervous system can do, and the speed. If you look at it's quite beautiful actually. If you look at the fear response and how it activates, and just the sheer momentum it gains so quickly in milliseconds, the entire body is changed in milliseconds like that. It's fucking unreal when you start looking at the neurology of it. Huge problems leaving the house is breathing. I'm walking and I can't breathe. Slow down. And don't. If you need to walk 1 step a second, then walk 1 step a second. Right? It's better to go slowly than it. One of the problems with exposure therapy is that we try and rush to get it over with as quickly as possible. Or we try and walk. If you've not left the house for 2 years, you're not going to be able to walk like you were able to 5 years ago. You're going to have to slow down. So just slow down. Slow right down to a level that's manageable, right? And walk slowly. And fuck what people think of you, right? Forget that. When I first left the house, it was like 1 step a second. In fact, that was my goal, was 1 step a second. I had a timer on my watch. And just do 1 step a second. And it's taken me a long time to get to where I was at. Like today, I was out in that, in the woods, remote place with the dog. And, there's quite a steep hill in part of it. And I was, really out of breath going up there. And it's taken me a long time to be able to do that without having a full-blown panic attack. The thing is, your body always knows how to breathe. If you're medically fit, aside from anxiety, then your body always knows how to breathe. So the belief is that you can't breathe. The truth is that you can, and you don't need to do anything about it. You don't need to try and slow your breathing down, speed it up, hold your breath, do breathing exercises. Just let go. Just go, body, do your thing. And that's what I did as I was practicing walking up this hill. I would stop, I would just let go and go, body, breathe how you need to breathe. As uncomfortable as it was for me to feel, I just had to let it do it. Right, scrolling back through some comments, bear with me. Yeah, don't tell an actual doctor you've Googled because you'll immediately get dismissed. Yes. However, I'm sure most of you have seen that meme that's floating around that says something along the lines of, don't confuse your Google search with my 6 years of medical training. And the patient replies, don't confuse your 1 hour seminar on my condition with a lifetime of suffering from it. And I thought that was a fucking brilliant response. And it's true, right? Because doctors don't get a hell of a lot of training on anxiety, you know, like GPs. It's like a module for becoming a GP. Here's a list of medications to prescribe as a first course of action. Refer them to the local CBT service. Move on. Right? The entire system is broken. They need to be explaining what anxiety is, how the nervous system works, right at the beginning, which they just don't do. Tight chest. Yeah, I mean, tight chest. I mean, my chest tightness is horrendous. But I've learned not to fear it. How do people do with cardiophobia? I mean, that's been my main thing for years. Cardiophobia and the brain and heart, basically. They've been my thing for years. Best thing I can say is go get the medical assurance that you need, that your heart is fine, right? And for me, I had to get the full works. And people who followed me for a while know that I only got this fully completed at the end of last year. I needed to know that my heart was fully fine, so I went and got a stress ECG, a heart scan, a 72-hour ECG, which I actually ended up wearing for 5 days, as well as a resting ECG and blood tests, right? All of it came back fine, medically assured. Didn't stop the heart symptoms, though. So what I had to do is use that medical assurance to change my behaviour. That's how you... So the first thing, get the medical assurance that your heart's okay. Once you have that, bear with me, TikTok's just asking me to do something because I've been live for a while. Oh, for God's sake, this stupid fucking puzzle thing that it gives me. There we go. Get the medical assurance that you need and then change your behaviour. So you've got to stop checking your pulse. You've got to take your smartwatch off. Stop avoiding things that raise your heart rate, that type of thing. And it takes time and practice. And it's only now that most of the fear of my heart has gone, most of the time. I get other symptoms though that I really struggle with. Toby, I've been there with presentations and stuff. Been there. In AA, we get asked to share our story sometimes, and I was sharing at a meeting, and partway through, I just couldn't speak anymore. I couldn't get breath into my lungs, and I just completely collapsed. So I totally, you have sympathy. My sympathy. How do you deal with executive function? I'm not sure what you mean. It's not a term I've heard before. I can never sleep after my night shift. OCD so bad. Feel like checking it, etc. Any tips? The thing with OCD is you can't give into it at all. You have to just stop. And there can never be a reason to go and check again, because as soon as you do, you're back doing it all the time. I've still got little remnants of OCD that I'm trying to get rid of. Generally speaking, as my anxiety's improved, my want to do these repetitive behaviours is constantly improved, and I've just kind of stopped doing most of them, but there's some that I still do that piss me off. But as soon as you do one, yeah, that's the problem with OCD. Short term, I've got a terrible short term memory these days. I'm saying all the time, I'm always asking people to remind me of stuff. It's the reason I've got an Alexa in every room, so I can get Alexa to remind me to do stuff all the time. You've glitched. Well, I hope I've unglitched. Need for checking for lumps. Yeah. Right, I'm just scrolling through some more comments. Bear with me. How can you stop checking for lumps? Well, I mean, obviously, balls and boobs, guys, it's got to be done, once a month or whatever. But the rest of your body, you've just got to leave it down to chance, really. I mean, you've either got two choices, right? The chances are you don't have cancer. So you either waste your life on health anxiety, continually checking for a disease you 99% haven't got, and you risk this 1%, or it's less than 0.0001% chance of getting cancer because you didn't check. Do you know what I mean? Cancer has way more symptoms than just a lump as well. I know guys who has health anxiety, like we're talking about, and he's had cancer 4 times, and you just deal with it. He says. I had depersonalization today, Mr. Bean, when I was up walking the dog, and acceptance is the only answer. Ran out of the supermarket the other day, I thought people were going to attack me. Felt like I was going to vanish, terrifying. Yeah, I feel you. I've been there. Try not to run out next time. If you need to leave, walk out as calmly as you can, but don't run, because running sends a very strong message to the brain that we're something to be afraid of. I'm glad it has helped, Courtney. I'm going to have to go, guys, because I'm getting... my throat's starting to hurt because it's quite hard doing TikTok live, because you're the only one talking. So it takes quite a lot of energy and stuff out of you. I need groceries. The fridge is almost empty, but I'm terrified to go grocery. Gigi from Canada, nice to have you here. Order it online. Order what you need online. Then set yourself a goal to go to the shop and buy one thing. That's how I have progressed with my fear of going to the supermarket. I order the bulk of it online and get it delivered, and then I set myself a goal. But you have to be disciplined and obviously set yourself a goal and just go and buy 1 or 2 things. And ideally go every single day, every day, and buy one thing. Doesn't matter what it is. And ideally, start at the front of the shop and gradually work your way towards the back, ideally. And build it up to go in to get a grocery shop where you're filling up your fridge. Don't go from where you are now to trying to do a full grocery shop. You'll just traumatise yourself. So instead, build it up slowly. Give yourself permission to order online. It's fine to order online. I assume you can do that in Canada. I mean, I don't know where you live in Canada. For all I know, you're in the middle of the mountains and ordering online isn't an option, but that's what I would do. Lost your mum 2 years ago today, bless you. Anniversaries are always tough. I've been through it. It was my dad's birthday 2 days ago, and he died 11 years ago. It's tough. Yeah, Steve, you need to take your Apple Watch off, mate. You got to take it off and stop bullshitting yourself that you're counting your steps. You're measuring your heart rate. You've got to take it off. Everybody who has cardiophobia has to take off their smartwatch and stop checking their pulse. It's just a must. You have to. Leg numbness, my right one is terrible. Yeah. I used to go numb all down one side of the body. There's lots of reasons for the numbness. Malfunctioning of the signals and misfiring and the erratic nature of the signals firing through the nerves. The functioning of the nerves is all wrong, causing a numbness feeling. But the anxiety, well, sorry, not the anxiety, the stress response in the human body, the periaqueductal grey part of the brain, it's called the periaqueductal grey, and the job of the periaqueductal grey is to try and restore balance to the body during fear and panic. And one of those mechanisms is if you were in an accident and you severed a limb, endogenous opioids, a painkiller, gets released into the bloodstream. So a natural numbing agent actually gets released by the brain. And when we are highly sensitized, that can be overactive and it can cause numbness. So that's another reason for it. 24 hours sees you get back normal. So your heart's fine then, Steve. You have to. So now you don't have to believe your heart's okay, Steve. You have to act as if you believe your heart's okay. And that means stop wearing smartwatch. Stop checking your pulse. Because you've got the medical assurance. Use the medical assurance to change your behaviour and the belief will follow. Trust me, because I've been through it. I promise you, I lived with my hand here and my smartwatch measuring my pulse, blood pressure monitor near me, oximeter on my finger. They went with me everywhere, and a thermometer, actually. Always look for reassurance. Yeah. So, Steve, you've got to make sure that you're not doing things like avoiding being on your own, because I did that as well. Developed monophobia. Couldn't be on my own because what if I have a heart attack? Who's going to do CPR? Who's going to call an ambulance? You have to stop all of that. And when you have a panic attack, you have to face it alone in your room, on your own. Stand there, face it, face death, and say, "Go on, then, kill me. Go on, then, do it." And I started, and I could only do it for 10 seconds. 10 or 15 seconds. And then I had to stop and go back to checking my pulse and my oxygen and asking for reassurance. But gradually, I did it for 10 seconds, then 15, then 30, then a minute, then 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then I could see the panic attack right through. And very, very quickly after that, the 15 panic attacks a day went down to a few a week. You know, it felt like that. It wasn't. It was over about, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks or something. Doing that. It's from a book called The Panic Switch. It works. Something's gone wrong at work where I'm not sure it's my fault. I always think it's my fault when things go wrong. I can't get it off my mind. Sunflower, if you didn't set out or have any motive or intent to do this thing wrong, then it is not your fault. Right? Even if, right, through an accident or a mistake you've made, this thing has gone wrong. Even if that is the case, through an accident or a mistake, that this thing has gone wrong, right? And it's your fault. It's still not your fault, is it? Because it was an accident, a mistake. It's only your fault if there was intent and motive there to do it. We're all human beings just trying our best to get through life. We all fuck up. But if you don't have any motive or intent, then it's not your fault. And you can't bullshit whether you have, you can't say, "Oh, I didn't have any motive or intent," but clearly you did. You can't bullshit to yourself, do you know what I mean? So go easy on yourself. Yeah, you've got to read Claire Weeks' book that Kate said, absolutely. Dr. Claire Weeks is the answer to all anxiety problems, to be honest. Do you think meds can help? Don't listen to Google or the doctor, listen to your body. Not if you've got anxiety. You can't really... I mean, don't listen to Google, for sure. But you've got to be careful about listening to your body. I'm just scrolling through some comments again. Advice on panic attacks. I've just given some advice on panic attacks. You have to face it. So, before I go, right, I'm going to go because I've been talking for well over an hour now. Before I go, for books, it's Dr. Claire Weeks, Self-Help for Your Nerves, and The Panic Switch by Jeffrey Hammett. You don't have to remember this or write it down because it's on my website, which is free. If you go to my TikTok profile, go to my website, the useful resources page, books, podcasts, audiobooks, other helpful things like fatigue management, yoga nidra for nervous system regulation. It's all linked on my website. It's there, free to use. Go for it. The books cost nothing. It's like $8.99 on Amazon for one of them, and I think the other one's $11.99. That's it. So it's all on my website. So go to my TikTok profile, go to my website. Also on my TikTok profile, also on my website through my TikTok profile are anxiety blogs that I've started writing, which explain everything that I talk about in terms of the nervous system in blog format, so you can read about it. And also links to TikToks, my TikToks that I've made. So I've now created a page called TikTok Library, I think I've called it. And if you go to that page, there's a list of about 49 or 50 TikToks with a search box at the top. So you can, if you want to know about dizziness, just type in dizziness. If you want to know about agoraphobia, type in agoraphobia. And it should filter the list down for you. And then you can click on each TikTok that I've made that people have found the most helpful. There's stuff, obviously, loads on health, anxiety, agoraphobia, panic attacks. It's all on there. So you don't have to remember everything I say on this live. So maybe after this live, just go to my profile and head over to my website, check it out, the useful resources page. And that's where to go. I'm also shortly going to be posting recordings of my lives onto YouTube, which I will link on my website. I'm currently fighting with TikTok and another app to try and download and format the live recordings. It's being a bit of a ball ache, to be honest, but I'm still working on the live that I did on Sunday. So I'm still working on that one. Then I'll do the one that I did on Monday, and then I can do today's, and then I'll get them on there so you can re-watch them and try and fast forward to the bits that you found most helpful. I am also considering starting a podcast, but we'll see. So I'm gonna leave with that, guys. Rainbow, can I say something? Yes, you can say something, Rainbow, before I go. Thank you for the Christmas wishes, guys. For everybody who follows me, though, I'm not a Christmas person. I kind of ignore it. I just kind of ignore its existence. I just kind of ignore its existence. But you guys all have a beautiful Christmas, right? You guys have a beautiful Christmas. But personally, I don't really celebrate it. I bought my son Christmas presents, and that's about as far as it's going for me. I don't even have a tree up in the house or a single Christmas decoration. I literally ignore its existence. But that doesn't mean I don't want you guys to enjoy it. Christmas was just a time for me to have an excuse to get pissed at 7 o'clock in the morning, so there's not many happy memories for me of Christmas. Actually, I hated Christmas as a kid, funnily enough. I hated it as a kid. I didn't like it then either. And it's not because my dad didn't make it great for me. He did. But, I just didn't like it. I didn't like the change to routine. That's what it is. Look at my little dog. Look at him. Come here, Rory. Come and say hello to the people. Come on. Come here. Look at him. He's had his hair cut today. So cute. Bless him. Anyway, guys, right. I'm going to go. It's been lovely chatting to you all. I'll catch you all soon. Take care.